if we're good. Go back out. Okay, it looks like we're good. Hey guys, this is Travis Single with Shell Shock MMA, and we're doing the UFC 258 post-fight show. Just getting done in Las Vegas, Nevada, with the undisputed welterweight champion hanging onto his belt after a pretty gutsy fight, especially in the first round, after going against Gilbert Burns. And Gilbert Burns, he put a lot of heat in the first round to Kamaru, but it just seemed like I don't. It almost seemed like it was almost a theme of the night tonight in Vegas, where it looks like a lot of these guys, where they were big, heavy guys coming into a lot of these fights, were definitely outmatched as far as the strength, and it seemed like they almost gassed just because they threw so much in a short amount of time, and that's what it seemed to happen with Gilbert Burns. So Gilbert ends up landing a great right hand that landed on the left side of Kamaru's temple, and that basically stunned him. Tried to go for the kill. Gilbert wasn't able to take care of it. Second round, you could tell that Kamaru was definitely sticking to his jabs and actually switching up different jabs along the way too, and landing a lot more shots. And he actually dropped him in the second round with a jab and was able to actually drop him to the canvas. And pretty much Gilbert wanted him to come to the ground. And so Kamaru basically just leg kicked him, almost similar to what Cerrone did to Hernandez back in the day in Las Vegas, where he basically was just going to kick his legs there and make shots to the body, and definitely couldn't come too close to him to get in Gilbert's reach or anything. But it looked like he was able to do a lot of jabs, especially in the second round. But in the third round, he basically just poured it on. In the third, he switched up different jabs. Definitely learned by Trevor Whitman in his training camp for this fight against Gilbert. And Trevor Whitman, a legend in the sport. It's a man that I've known for many of years, and this MMA community here in Colorado has definitely been privileged to have. Not only for his coaching, but just as a person himself. So it's been a great journey. If you've been following Kamaru's Instagram or any of his social medias, you've been seeing basically updates with Justin Gaethje and other guys over at Elevation Fight Team. So he's been doing a hell of a good job, and Kamaru definitely set it up. And Trevor Whitman said at the end of the first and then the second, stick with your jab, and that's how you became champion for this whole time. And this is Kamaru's 13 straight as far as winning in the welterweight division. That breaks George St. Pierre's record. So now he's in the history books. So not many guys left that he hasn't defeated already. He defeated Colby Covington. He's defeated Jorge Masvidal. And, a lot of people are saying Leon Edwards, but I just don't see it. I don't see how Leon Edwards, after getting disrespected by Jorge Masvidal in his home country and just how the long layoff and everything, I just don't see how he steps up to the plate. But there is rumors going around that Leon Edwards might take on Colby Covington here on possibly March 13th, which he was supposed to take on another opponent that just seems to be having a lot of problems with the COVID and stuff. So he got tested positive for COVID and just seems to be really weak along this time. So welcome everybody to Shell Shock MMA. If you're watching it on the Facebook page or on our YouTube page, welcome. My name is Travis Single. I'm the owner creator of Shell Shock MMA. We've been doing it for roughly about 10 years. We've been on mainstream radio in Denver, Colorado, on Mile High Sports Radio. And then also just doing covering local fights and also national fights as well. We've done PFL, Bellator, UFC, local local cards all over here in Colorado, local cards in New Mexico, local cards in Wyoming. We even did PFL and Bellator cards in other states as well. And it's just been a great time to be able to cover certain events for the last decade. And we appreciate all the support from the fans. Ryan Smith is our news editor, so he does a great job for us. And also Rick Dowdy, as you guys might know, is our photographer that has been doing that for a long time. And a lot of the times when we were covering either Bellator in California or New Mexico, and then when we covered all the fights here in Colorado, he was our great photographer, usually on cage side or sometimes on top of the cage, which was really cool too. So special shout out to Rick Dowdy for doing such a great job over the years, and Ryan Smith for also helping out with everything. So it's just been a great journey over and over. It's been a fun process to be able to see guys like Ian Heinisch, who fought on the card, and also Mallory Martin, to be able to cover these guys from the get go, in their actual amateur career and also in their pro careers here in the state of Colorado. To be able to see them on the UFC card is pretty crazy. It's pretty weird. It's for definitely somebody that's been cage side for a lot of their fights, especially with Ian Heinisch. It is pretty surreal. Same thing with Justin Gaethje and some of these other guys that are definitely stars, and some of them will become future stars here in the next couple years for sure. And Ian Heinisch, unfortunately, he ended up getting the loss tonight via unanimous decision, but I think he did pretty good. It was just kind of a sloppy fight all around. The Ian Heinisch and Kelvin Gastelum ended up fighting right before the co-main event, and I was kind of surprised because I really didn't think Macy Barber coming off the injury, and then Alexa Grasso ended up getting the co-main event slot, and I really thought that somebody like Kelvin Gastelum, that was former number one contender, and then somebody like a rising star with Ian Heinisch should have got that co-main event slot, but I don't know, it just seemed like from the get-go it was just kind of sloppy by Ian and Kelvin right off the bat. Kelvin seemed to be able to just kind of put Ian against the fence and trying to do the different sprawls and stuff, trying to get him to take down. And, every single time he would do a slam takedown, Kelvin never really held down Ian. And then Ian was able to reverse a lot of stuff too. So it was very close, even in the first two rounds where it wasn't really dominant or, Ian was close to being finished or anything. And then Ian stepped up big time in the third round, and I thought did a great job, not only on the feet, but also on the ground too, to be able to take Kelvin's back. And look, a couple times, even in the first round, that Ian would be able to possibly try to get a submission victory to be able to go through there. So I think it just all depends on, you know, what you guys see and what you guys think. Hopefully anybody that's listening right now will be able to chime in real quick. Trying to This is kind of a trial run with us. We're definitely going to get some guests, probably not tonight, but definitely next week for the pre and post show for the Curtis Blades versus Derek Lewis fights coming up on the what would that be, the 20th of February. So it's definitely a process that we're going to run into. We got a couple really good guests, actually one legendary guest coming up next weekend on Saturday night for the pre-fight show, and then the post-fight show. You never know. We might just chime in and be able to do different stuff with it. And I don't know. Eventually, I think we'll be able to give prizes away and then just be a little bit more interactive as far as the video goes. And the video is really cool because we got a system set up where it's almost like a chat basis, but we could also do live call-ins, and also people could call into the show too. So that's a cool little added feature onto it. So we'll just wait and see, and we'll just see how a lot of this transpires. And the cool thing is we'll be able to split screen guys in, and we'll be able to do live interviews, and then also record it later for the podcast as well. So we'll probably end up doing the video and the podcast together, but then I could always grab and edit the audio footage later on for people's interviews and stuff like that. So I guess we could start with kind of going over the card and then seeing what you guys think. I'm going to try to make sure everything's on. Everything looks on from Facebook spot. Just trying to see if everything seems to be on with YouTube channel. Let me just check something real quick. Yeah, it looks like YouTube. Yep, looks like YouTube is up to now as well. So YouTube channel's up, so you can go to YouTube, go put in Shell Shock MMA, all one word, and then you'll be able to definitely check it out. I'm just trying to figure out different ways on how we can interact with a lot of the fans and stuff too. So I want to see what we can do. I want to see if seeing the other thing is I want to see if we could be able to get comments and stuff in too. So this is kind of a trial run for us. See if we get any response or stuff. So let's see. So it looks like everything's rolling live. So I guess we'll go with that, and maybe we'll get some comments in the comment section. So I'll be able to read some stuff on there. Okay, so basically we'll talk about the prelims that started. Unfortunately, there was a couple fights that dropped off. One was ended up being canceled today, and it was basically due to illness that it looked like. Basically, a fighter. It was Jillian Robertson versus Miranda Maverick, and it looked like Jillian Robertson ended up having a non-COVID related illness and pulled out of the fight today. So, because that pretty much was put on the card at UFC.com and also the social medias as they were still going to fight as of this morning. And it looks like this afternoon is when they pulled it. Another fight, let's see, another fight that ended up getting pulled was, let's see, just posted it. Okay, let's see. No. Oh, that's what it was. It was Bobby Green. Bobby Green's fight. Bobby Green pulled out due to a bad weight cut, and he actually dropped in the backstage area. And Bobby Green was supposed to take on Jim Miller. So that fight ended up basically getting swapped out. They weighed in, everything looked good. They ended up doing the face-offs and everything, and supposedly, yeah, because they ended up. I'm trying to see if they ended up doing pictures and stuff. Could have sworn they did. Let's see. Yeah, they ended up taking pictures, Jim Miller and Bobby Green, and then there was ended up being no face-off. So I'm guessing that's probably what ended up happening is when he went back right before they did the face-offs. That's when he collapsed, and basically they shut that fight off right from the get-go. So it sucks for Bobby Green because Bobby Green's a really good dude. I've had the privilege to meet him a couple times, just be able to cover some of the UFC events, and I think I've even seen him at a Bellator event too. So really good dude. It just was an unfortunate situation. And Jim Miller, Jim Miller's a longtime veteran of the UFC, so it's pretty crazy to think that he's even still fighting. It's pretty remarkable actually. So that's how damn good he's been over the years and how dependent and everything too. So it's pretty crazy on how everything pans out. So we ended up having, let's see, we had a total of, let's see, we had a total of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 prelims, fights on the prelim card, and basically uh, there was only one that ended up being on the, actually no, yeah, actually one ended up being on the UFC Fight Pass. So let's see. Yeah, so we ended up getting there. There's the. So yeah, so basically the first fight of the night was a welterweight fight between Gabriel Green versus Philip Rowe, and it ended up starting out the prelim card, and pretty much back and forth. Gabe Green ended up getting the unanimous decision victory over Phil Rowe. 30-27, 29-28, and 29-28. So one judge obviously saw it as a pretty uneven from all the reports I saw, and when I watched it myself, I thought it was 29-28 too, with Philip only winning one of the rounds anyway. So it was a pretty good fight. It wasn't really entertaining or anything, and especially when it goes to decision, it just wasn't really that exciting of a fight. Anyways, the whole card I didn't think really was worth the pay-per-view slot, anyways, and a lot of people agree to that. Where there was a lot of pissed off fans, and there was a lot of people that just thought it was not even worth bringing in, and not even worth having people pay that much money for a ESPN Plus pay-per-view, but it is what it is. So we'll just move on to next couple weeks where it's actually free. So that's a good part about it. Next prelim fight ended up going to switching over to ESPN and also being streamed on ESPN Plus was a catchweight 140-pound fight between Andre Ewell and Color Zone Factor X's own Chris Gutierrez. And Chris Gutierrez ended up getting the unanimous decision victory 30-26, 29-28, and 29-27. Chris definitely used the leg kicks to advantage, absolutely tore up both legs of Ewell, and it just seemed like from the get-go, Chris was just gunning for the legs, and he was really hit some really flashy kicks as far as some switch kicks and also some head kicks, and really dazed him in the first, and actually came close to finish him at the end of the first, but wasn't able to do it. In the second, it was more of the same, where Chris just was basically isolating the legs, and Mark Montoya was definitely yelling at Chris in the corner to take up the volume control and then just try to get more leg kicks and strikes as they could do it. Because you could tell that, even though Andre was still dangerous, Chris was pretty much having his way with him, and he was taking out his knees and basically just trying to finishing him off. That's pretty much what was happening in the second and third round. And it looked like he might be able to get the TKO or the KO stoppage in the end of the first, but also he had multiple chances in the second or third, especially in the third round where you could tell both legs were giving out, and you heard Joe Rogan in the commentary just saying that he was basically fighting on two blown out tires. So it was pretty crazy just to see. And Chris has done that a couple times where I call it the Justin Gaethje treatment, where he basically beats the crap out of either leg, either left or right leg. It's usually the lead leg that Gaethje would do, and that's what the same thing Chris was doing in his last couple fights too. So another great win by Chris Gutierrez out of Factory X. Another great victory for Mark Montoya and the whole Factory X crew. Uh, and then we ended up getting another Colorado fighter in Mallory Martin on the next prelim, and she ended up facing Polyana Viana, and it was kind of back and forth for a little bit, and then when it got to the ground, Viana ended up getting a armbar submission victory, and it was pretty nasty. It looked like actually Mallory was trying to skate quite often, but it just seemed like she got caught and it got hyperextended. So Polyana Viana ended up defeating Color Zone Mallory Martin via armbar submission, 3 minutes and 18 seconds of round number one. We ended up putting little video from Twitter on how it kind of hyperextended Mallory's right elbow. So it was pretty nasty to watch, especially to know somebody and be able to follow her career for most of the time she was here in Colorado. So it's nice to see her back home here with Team Elevation, where it looked like she was spending some time over in AKA out in Cali for a little bit. So it's nice to see her back home, but we'll see if she could rebound after this loss, which a lot of people thought Mallory Martin, including the odds makers, thought she would be the favorite because a lot of the people that she ended up beating in the past and some of Pollyanna's victories and losses, they ended up being a lot less of a competitive nature to Mallory Martin. So that was basically pretty much the first small upset of the night with Mallory Martin losing. And then the next prelim fight ended up being a welterweight fight between Bilal Muhammad and then Diego Lima. Diego Lima, he's just a monster. Same thing with his brother as well, Douglas. And Bilal just seemed like he was just going to take it to him no matter what. And Bilal, it it just seemed like a pretty much dominant performance by Muhammad to begin with. And a lot of the odds makers had that right at the get go anyway. So he ended up having Bilal Muhammad defeating Diego Lima via unanimous decision, 30-27 on all cards. So it was pretty much a dominant victory. Definitely a lot more striking than you would normally see, because sometimes these guys will go to the ground, but you could tell that they were pretty much striking from the get go. The biggest upset on the night for sure was the next prelim, and it was actually the last prelim before they ended up going to the main card, and that was on ESPN, and it ended up being a middleweight fight between Rodolfo Vieira versus Anthony Hernandez, and Anthony Hernandez has one of the greatest nicknames possibly ever in MMA, as he's known as Anthony Fluffy Hernandez. So Fluffy ended up doing a great job. Seemed like Rodolfo ended up taking to the ground right away. So I bet you there was a lot of people that were betting and licking their lips pretty well if they had Rodolfo by submission, because he's one of the greatest jiu-jitsu practitioners, not only in the UFC but also in the world. So looked like he be able to finish out Anthony right off the bat. But then in the second round, it just seemed like he was starting to really gas. And you could even tell in the face-off pictures that there's a big size difference between Rodolfo and Anthony. So you saw a big difference with size there. When you ended up having those two guys go at it, it just seemed like in the second round, he ended up just getting a lot of I don't know. It just seemed like he was taking a lot of punishment on his feet by Anthony, and then Anthony ended up just really punish him, and it just seemed like he was in a daze, or he was either gas or something. But something was definitely off by Rodolfo, like Joe Rogan said in the broadcast. But he ended up dropping him, and then Anthony followed him up to the ground. And I guess after the fight, the coaches basically said that they didn't want him to submit him, even if he could. And Anthony did it anyway. So he ends up getting the guillotine choke victory, 1 minute, 53 seconds of round number two. It was pretty impressive just because it's Rodolfo's not really a person to submit anyways, let alone actually see him submit in the UFC. So that was pretty crazy, and just a situation where Rodolfo, you could tell he was gassed and he was just through. He took way too many shots to the head too by Anthony to be able to last that fight anyways. And then ended up being a 30-1 underdog for Anthony Fluffy Hernandez to win via submission. So I highly doubt somebody, unless it was like Anthony's friends or family members or something. But even so, I bet you most of the time, even his family members, if they put any money on it, it would be either by victory or by KO. Not many people at all saw this by submission. So that's a pretty crazy stat to be able to see a 30-1 underdog. So that means, let's see, plus 3,000. Let's see, 30, 100. Yeah, so it looked like it was probably a plus 3,000 to be able to pull off that submission victory. So hopefully somebody ended up getting some good money tonight, but a lot of the times it was not many upsets tonight for sure. In the main card, it started off with a middleweight fight between Maki Patolo versus Julian Marquez. Marquez returning for the first time since 2018. Marquez definitely emotional after the win, just because it's been a long time coming for him to actually get back into the UFC and stuff. So he ends up getting the Anaconda choke submission victory over Maki, 4 minutes and 17 seconds into round number three. It was a pretty good overall fight. It seemed like Julian was definitely struggling in the first couple rounds, and then in the third round he was able to get the victory. So he was pretty emotional after the fight as well. So I thought that was a pretty good fight. Next fight on the main card ended up being Ricky Simone versus Brian Kelleher, and pretty much I thought it was a dominant victory for Ricky Simone, just on the ground, standing, pretty much anywhere the fight went. I thought it was a pretty, I don't know, it's kind of boring too. I didn't think both guys put a lot of Ricky Simone, he put a lot of effort into it, but it just seemed like Brian Kelleher wasn't really supposed to be a good opponent for him in the first place. And if people remember, Ricky Simone was supposed to be this stud, and he ends up getting upset by Uriah Faber after Uriah Faber came out of retirement, and they kind of put Ricky Simone on the back burner, and then he's been killing guys ever since losing to Uriah Faber. So Ricky Simone definitely a guy that's going to get more main card slots coming up. He was actually supposed to be on the prelim, so he ended up not even supposed to be on this main card. But since the fight with Jillian Robertson fell out, how they ended up pushing him into the main card, especially with Bobby Green and Jim Miller dropping out as well. So a pretty decent overall fight. It wasn't the greatest, It wasn't. Really anything dominant as far as just a total domination. But Kelleher's, the guy's had a lot of heart over the years, and even some of the past ones that he's lost as well. It just seemed like he did a really great job as well. So the next one we just talked about was Colorado's own Ian Heinisch versus the former number one contender of the middleweight division, Kelvin Gastelum, also former Ultimate Fighter winner as well. He ended up going all 3 rounds. Ian Heinisch ends up losing a unanimous decision 30-27, 29-28, and 29-28. I just thought it was a lot of back and forths with takedowns, bound strikes, and sub attempts. And, Kevin ends up winning the first 2 rounds, which even one of the rounds could have gone a little bit way too, as far as the first round. But it just seemed like there was too many takedowns by Kelvin, even though Ian popped right back up right away, and then he ended up getting back to his feet. So it just seemed like the scoring of it was probably a little off, just because it seemed like from all these slam takedowns that Kelvin was getting, that it was so impressive, but he wasn't really doing anything when Ian was actually on the ground with him. And then Ian surprisingly ended up getting taking his back in the third and tried to finish him. But there was a couple key locks and stuff, submissions by Ian in the first, where he looked to be in trouble too, but he was able to slip out and stuff too. So I thought it was a pretty good performance by both. It wasn't the greatest. I was talking to some people earlier, and they didn't seem too impressed with either fighter, and that's pretty much how I kind of saw it too. I just thought the performance all around, they just kind of looked off. I don't know what it was. Maybe there was other instances or stuff going on in their background or something like that, but I don't know. They both seem kind of flat. Ian, somebody that I've actually seen cage side and the power that he possesses and stuff. It just didn't seem there. And it seemed like he was reaching for a lot of his punches too. So it seemed like there was a lot of long distance between him and Calvin. And then when he was reaching and then when he'd crack, you'd have to get in too close to him. So he was pretty much waiting for the counter shot all the time. So it was a bummer. I was kind of hoping this would be, a really better fight to be able to say that it should have been in the co-main event instead of the Alexa Grasso and Macy Barber, but it just didn't live up to it, unfortunately. Just the card as a whole just wasn't that good, and I wouldn't be surprised if fans are pissed on Twitter that they waste their money on this card because it just really wasn't that good. Even the ESPN and the ESPN Plus fights on the card, it just wasn't that good. Period. Too many decisions. A lot of guys didn't have any killer instincts. The women didn't have killer instincts. The only person that had killer instinct was Macy Barber, but it was already after she was down 2 rounds to none. So the co-main event ended up being a women's flyweight fight between Macy Barber, Lexa Grasso. Macy ends up really dominating the third round, but ended up losing the first 2. So Alexa Grasso ended up getting the unanimous decision victory over Macy, 29-28 on all 3 cards. And at the top of the broadcast, we ended up putting up there that Kamaru Usman defends his welterweight championship once again against his good friend and his former training partner, Kamaru, Gilbert Burns. So Gilbert Burns came very close to being the new welterweight champion in the first round when he cracked him with a right hand to the left temple of him. So I thought it was pretty damn good. Yeah, just trying to look over some tweets and stuff, see if any news is popping up or anything. See if we can get some feedback from you guys. Hopefully, I can hear anything. Starting to hear some things, but I'm not hearing a lot of things. So I see some people are watching, but it just all depends. Yeah, so I'm starting to see it. So we'll have to do a little bit more trial runs. I want to try to be able to definitely bring in some chats. Let's see, show comment. Yeah, we'll just have to mess with things as we go along. So this is kind of a trial run. Uh, we'll be telling you guys on social media, probably Instagram and Facebook, who our guests are going to be for next week for the Curtis Blades versus Derek Lewis heavyweight main event in Vegas next Saturday night. The card overall definitely isn't a great card, but at the end of the day, it comes down to how these fighters fight. Because there could be a lot of great times, like we saw with Francis Ngannou versus Derek Lewis, where everybody thought this was going to be the greatest heavyweight championship, and somebody was going to get knocked out cold, and then we ended up seeing that result. So it was straight garbage. So it just really depends. The Curtis Blades and Derek Lewis card for next Saturday night isn't the greatest card other than the main event. So we'll just have to wait and see if these guys end up producing. Either way, we'll have some great guests on. We'll be able to fill in more things, and I'm gonna try to see if we can get in our news editor. Let's see if we can figure this out. Let's see. Uh, let's see. Refresh. Okay. Okay. Let's see if we can get this stream to work and see if we can get last night it worked, but we'll see if it works again. Let's see. Okay. Yeah, so that stream should work. So let's see. I'm gonna do a little try run with Ryan and see if we can get some news stories into you guys. There was quite a bit of stories, especially with Bellator, PFL, new schedule coming out. Can join in now with that link. Okay, so we'll wait a little bit till Ryan comes in. If people don't know who I am, I guess I could tell you a little bit about how I started off in MMA broadcasting, journalism, reporting, I guess whatever you really want to claim it as to be. But I started off in 2009 in school. We ended up creating our first ever MMA show on GoMahai.com. It was great. We get to interview legends like Vanderlei Silva and a bunch of local UFC fighters, including other guys outside the promotion like Bobby Lashley, a guy by the name of Jorge Masvidal, who was actually with Strikeforce at the time. A lot of guys along the way, Cody Donovan, Elliot Marshall, a bunch of other people that we got to interview in college. And then from there, I ended up creating um, MMA Meltdown on Mahi Sports Radio. Did a couple episodes for that. A bunch of drama happened, crap like that happened. So ended up being an embarrassment. Ended up having like 13 different hosts and a bunch of chaos, a lot of unpaid, a lot of unpaid business transactions. That so I basically wanted to separate my name from that. Then not too long ago, I was asked to be able to do some Mile High sports shows during the pandemic stuff. So I definitely took advantage of that opportunity, and we did some fights doing the pre and the post in the month of May of 2020, and that was a lot of fun. And then pretty much I've been doing Shell Shock and then just covering all the local and national information and covering it cage side, and it's just been a lot of fun over the years and be able to meet all the coaches and the the fighters and everything. It's just been a great ride to begin with. So it looks like Ryan's in now, so we're going to try to see if we can connect to him. Let's see. Let's see if we can connect to him. Add to the stream. There we go.
There we go.
There we go. Okay. So we're starting to roll with it. So Ryan Smith is our news editor. Ryan's been a huge help to us for many years, pretty much the whole time we had Shell Shock. It was pretty much a friendly thing that we put together just because there was a lot of weasels in the game. So we wanted to get rid of the weasels and
Sadly,
make sure
yes.
that,
Sadly, yes.
yeah, and make sure that the other people never had any credentials. So that's pretty much how it worked. And guess what? They haven't had credentials for about a decade. So
Yeah, exactly.
I wonder how that works out. So
Uh-huh.
yeah, so it's been fun. Ryan's been all over the nation. You haven't gotten anything out of country, have you? You've never covered. No, just
Only
let's see.
US, yeah.
Yeah. So you got what? Seattle, LA,
Seattle,
New
LA,
Mexico, New Mexico, Anaheim.
Vegas.
Yeah. That's like our second home, Vegas is.
Yeah, exactly. I'm trying to think what else. I think that's it. I think that's it.
Yeah, I think that's it.
Seattle, Vegas, LA, Anaheim, Arizona, Glendale. We did the Glendale card.
Yeah, and then we did New Mexico, right? You were with us.
Yep, the
Rio
Bellator one.
Yeah, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, yeah. So we done pretty much all over. The only thing I've done different is I covered the PFL in Chicago a couple years back, but that's about it. So that's just because I was at the right place at the right time. So.
There you go.
Not that I normally did it, but it was pretty cool to see the Chicago Theater and have a cage right on the middle of it. That was pretty weird. So. But then again, Paramount's almost as old here in Denver, Colorado, and they had a cage up there too. So it was pretty cool. So Ryan, tell us a little bit about. I guess give us your thoughts on UFC 258 first.
I was listening to to listen to the podcast. It's mediocre card.
Yeah,
pretty much. Yeah. I mean, I was impressed with the main event. I thought both guys looked really good. Mm-hmm. Burns was really close in the first round to getting the title. It seemed like he let Usman off the hook when he had him hurt.
Yeah.
When he really should have just gone in and tried and finished it because that was his one opportunity. Mm-hmm. And then from the second and early third on, Usman just turned it up and got the finish early in the third.
Yeah. And Usman, it just seemed like once his jabs were working, especially after Trevor yelled at him at the end of the first round, he was just cracking him. It was not even, he didn't see it coming too. There was a lot of times you could tell that he was switching different jabs and Gilbert just had no clue what he was seeing. But I just thought it was funny because when he was cracking him and he dropped him down, Gilbert was expecting him to come to the ground, but we all knew that wasn't going to happen. So I don't even know what
you don't want to go to the ground with Gilbert Burns.
No, that'd be deadly. Even Kamaru, I don't care what wrestling background or whatever, but wrestling and jiu-jitsu obviously are two different things. So yeah. So what you think about the co-main event, and did you think that they deserved to be over Ian and Kelvin?
For the fight itself, I was impressed with Alexa. I think she's come a long way in a short period of time, especially moving up to 125.
Well, and I thought of with Alexa because a lot of people were kind of putting her on the back barrel, but a lot of people had her as the favorite, especially with betting odds. And Alexa really was kind of at Macy's spot years ago until she started losing to she's losing the top competition. Yeah. She's not losing the.
It was that Police Herrick fight where people kind of, where people really thought, oh, maybe Alexa's not as good as we thought she was.
Yeah.
But now you're kind of seeing her fulfill her potential. Yeah. I feel like.
What you think of the Kelvin Ian fight?
It seemed to me like Kelvin was fighting like a guy that was on a 3-fight losing streak and was just trying to get the win.
I thought the exact same thing. I thought when I was so pissed because of course I lost both the bets with taking Ian and I was just like watching this and I'm like Ian's so close to just finishing it and I thought he might have hit a couple chances with like the key locks and stuff in the first. And I was like, okay, well, maybe I'm going to be pissed because if he ends up getting the submission victory, that's a plus 1,500. And then they ended up moving from the time that the fight started to almost probably about 15 minutes before the fight started. They ended up moving his odds from plus 750 to plus 900 for him to get the KO victory for Ian. So I thought that was pretty interesting. So I don't know if
Hmm.
they heard something or knew something. I don't know why they moved it up so much, but they must have thought that they could sucker people like me into
Right,
taking
exactly.
and lose them more money. So that's pretty much what happens.
Yeah,
But yeah, it just seemed like you're right. I thought it was a guy that was coming off of some recent defeats, and yeah, I thought both of them didn't look that good at all. And then
no,
Kelvin's calling to try to take on Robert Whitaker or Paulo Costa, and I was like, what the hell is he thinking? Yeah.
that's the fight you want right now, I don't think.
No, I think it'd be like the dumbest thing ever, possibly. So I was kind of surprised to even hear him say that out of his mouth. But maybe he was
Yeah,
just happy and he just thought that he could try to bypass all these people, but that's not going to happen.
right.
Yeah,
Yeah, I don't see it.
yeah, I just thought it was kind of crazy. But tell us a little bit about Bellator and all the news that broke this
So
Tuesday, actually.
so Bellator 2021 schedule just got announced, at least the first part of it. So looking like April 2nd is going to be the first card of the year for them, with Patricio Pitbull putting up his featherweight championship against Emmanuel Sanchez in the semifinals of their featherweight tournament, I believe, is
Nice.
as well.
Yeah.
And then, of course, the big news: their light heavyweight Grand Prix got announced this week.
Mm-hmm.
That's going to start April 9th, featuring 4 former UFC standouts and champions,
Mm-hmm.
with Ryan Bader versus Lyoto Machida 2,
Uh-huh.
and the fight everyone's excited about, Yoel Romero versus Anthony Rumble Johnson.
Yeah, that's gonna be that's the one where, and for Yoel Romero to actually move up a weight class too. So this is a guy that he doesn't do great with weight cuts to begin with, but then now he's going to be in 205 where he could be the biggest. He's already a big monster anyways at 185, but when
Mm-hmm.
he's going to be at 205, it's going to be a game changer, I think.
Against another guy in the past that had terrible weight cuts in Rumble,
Yeah, yeah, that's
losing
another
60,
guy. Yeah, yeah,
he was
and then
losing 60 pounds to make welterweight. Now he's at 205 and he's still knocking fools out.
yeah, and then a two-time number one contender against DC of Rumble too. So yeah,
Mm-hmm.
it's a guy that, and then the Machida being a former champion. So
Yeah,
that's
Bader
just
coming
crazy.
off the title loss to Menkov as well, so it's going to
Yeah,
be
yeah.
interesting to see him.
And Bader was a two-division champion in Bellator as well.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah, he's still the heavyweight champ. I think Coker
yeah,
said they might do an interim heavyweight championship while he's in the tournament. So
that
we'll
makes
see.
sense. Yeah,
We'll see what happens there. But
I'm trying to
that's
think. Have they got any good free agents in the heavyweight division? I thought
no,
they.
I don't think so.
Yeah, I'm not sure because I think some of
But
them ended up PFL ended up grabbing, but I
I
thought
think
there was
Conga
at
was
least
his
a
last fight
couple.
at heavyweight, if
Yeah,
I
so
remember
Czech's still
correctly.
there. Yeah, there's some guys that are still there. I forget. Yeah. So yeah, there's
I know Mitrione's still there, I believe.
yeah, Mitchell's still there. Czech
I
Congo.
think what's that was another guy there that was good. I forgot his name. He beat Roy recently.
Oh, I know who you're talking about.
Karatanov. That's right,
Oh
it's
yeah,
Karatanov.
oh yeah, Karatanov, yeah,
So,
and we covered him at Glory. So Karatanov's a really
mhm.
nice guy. Yeah, he's old though. People don't
Yeah,
realize how old he is.
that's the thing.
He's been fighting for a long time.
Well, a lot of the heavyweights are late 30s, early 40s.
Yeah,
You really think about it,
yeah, yeah. If you think about it, even look at Czech Congo. Czech Congo's not young by any means,
44, 45.
and Mitrione's got to be close to 42 because if
Close.
Brendan's,
I think
Brendan,
Mitrione's 40.
yeah, because Brendan's got to be, I think Brendan's around my age, so he's got to be close to at least 38, 39.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, so, yeah, for all those tough guys, it seems like, yeah, because even Roy's in Bellator now, too. So, yeah, it seems like some of the top 10 contestants are in Bellator now. So,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. So, tell us a little bit about PFL and their upcoming schedule.
So looks like they announced a lot of their 2021 schedule as well. So obviously some of their big free agent signings this past year, they got Rory McDonald for their welterweight tournament.
Yep.
They got
Which was supposed to be last year with 2020, but of course, COVID screws
and
that up too.
well, COVID screwed up a lot of things. Let's
Yeah,
be
that's
honest.
true. It screwed up pretty much everything. Yeah, pretty much.
And
I
then
was surprised they got so much cards. I couldn't believe that the UFC got so many cards off of what they did, and then you had barely anything from Bellator, and then PFL just shut it down altogether. So
right.
And I don't think
Yeah.
the local scene has had anything since March, so that's pretty surprising.
No.
Yeah. So
And
give
then
us a little bit about your schedule.
so we got obviously for their one of the things that broke late last year, they announced that Anthony Showtime Pettis will be in their lightweight tournament.
Mm-hmm.
They announced it 4 days actually after his last UFC fight as well. So
Yeah.
Anthony was a free agent for all of 72 hours basically,
Yeah. Yeah.
and then he's got a new home, and then also Fabricio Verdum is in their heavyweight tournament. I don't think we talked about that at all.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a huge thing. Former UFC heavyweight champion as well.
Mm-hmm.
A guy that lost his belt to the current heavyweight champion, still Stipe Miocic. So, and he's supposed to be fighting here in the let's see, about
About
6 weeks.
6 weeks.
6 weeks.
6 weeks.
That's crazy.
It's a Nagani rematch.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's going to be a good one. And I'll tell you, I finally heard Francis Ngannou's interview with Joe Rogan the last couple months, and I, with his dedication and stuff, it's going to be really hard for Stipe to win the second one. I just think Francis is on another level now.
Yeah, it seems like Francis got his mental state figured
Yeah,
out,
yeah,
cleared up.
yeah.
Because,
And I think even the ground game might have been worked on too, quite a bit.
mm-hmm. But I mean, when you got a guy that big and that freaky of an athlete, I mean, you kind
Yeah,
of have to, you kind of have to tune some things
yeah.
to get it right. But Francis is probably maybe the hardest hitter the UFC's ever seen.
Oh yeah, yeah, easily. Because I think even they've done testing and stuff, and they pretty much said that. I think they did even a sports science on ESPN, and Francis is like way above. Because I think at first it was Derek Lewis, and then they measured Francis Ngannou, and it's just through the roof. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, the guy's just a monster. And then
He is
to think that he's only been I think they said he has only been doing it since was it 20?
2014,
Yeah,
2013.
2013, I heard. Yeah, yeah. And then he kind of started off as like a guy that was like cleaning the place, cleaning the gym and stuff, and then kind of going into it. And they asked him, we are like, well, why didn't you go into boxing? And they're like, oh, boxing just wasn't as famous as MMA was at the time. And then they said when he first fought his first couple of fights, they didn't even allow ground and pound over in France. They didn't allow it
Oh.
at all, so they didn't really even go to the ground. And if they did, you had to grapple, which I think would be the weirdest thing because you literally just have to stop and just have to go with grappling. You can't even like think of anything. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, that's got to be cool. But yeah, he basically said that he just wrecked shop, and then obviously he fought here in Denver at the Pepsi Center, knocking out Arlovsky in the first round.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, the dude's just a really good dude. We get to spend
Yes,
time
he's
with
a cool
him,
guy.
and yeah, in Vegas, and then even in the hotel in Colorado the night before he took on Arlovsky, and dude's just the beast. Yeah,
Yeah,
but he's like the nicest guy you'll ever meet.
exactly.
Stipe's the same way too. Stipe
Stipe's
actually used
awesome
to,
too.
yeah, Stipe used to train here for a little bit with the Elevation Fight Team. Once a lot of the guys left from Grudge to go over to Elevation,
I think him and
Stipe would come on.
didn't him and Brendan do some training together while
Yeah,
he was still
yeah,
out here?
yeah. Brendan, Josh Copeland, Justin Rand, a lot of those guys that were still out there at the time, they ended up at Muscle Farm. Yeah, I know for a
Oh,
fact
that's
they
right.
trained at
Yeah,
Muscle Farm. So yeah, ever since they switched over and Muscle Farm shut down, I don't think he was training there. So
he's
most of
been
the
back in
time,
Cleveland.
yeah, I think most of the time he's always been in Ohio. Anyways, he was just there for I think a couple months. But even like Wonder Boy, there's a lot of guys that would just come in and look at Usman. He wasn't always here in
Right.
Colorado. He just came out here for this camp. So
Yeah, I mean back in the day, remember all the Team Alpha Male guys pretty much would come out here too to train with Dwayne.
oh yeah, yeah. We ran into Joe, Benavides,
And Chad.
TJ, Chad. Yeah, pretty much everybody. So yeah,
Mm-hmm.
that whole dynamic was just weird too, especially with all the chaos on the Ultimate Fighter and stuff going down. So I thought it was just
Mm-hmm.
pretty weird, but you know. It's just a cool opportunity for us to see it, being media and stuff, just to be able to see these guys training and stuff, and
Mm-hmm.
yeah, always great thing for coaches and people like Leister Bowling, Trevor Whitman, and stuff for us to be able to see this because a lot of people
Yeah.
don't even get to
Mark
see it.
Montoya as well.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Mark has always been a great
Mark's
guy.
always been great
Oh
with
yeah,
me.
Oh yeah, Mark's always been really. There's never ever been any animosity with media members or anything like that. They've always
No.
been open, and sometimes in other leagues and stuff, they kind of frown on it, or you have to have all these different credentials, whether you're news media or your TV and stuff. But yeah, it just seemed like it was a great opportunity, and we kind of fell into it at the right time too, because it was starting to get big right around the
Hmm.
time we started doing it anyway. So. I think
Yeah.
it was kind of a
Yeah.
perfect
Once we
timing.
started doing Shell Shock, the Colorado scene just exploded.
Yeah, yeah. That and just yeah, there was just kind of like a fly by night people that would do it, and they didn't really take it serious. They once people saw that we were taking it serious, I think that's what it came
Hmm.
down to. So
Yeah, exactly.
yeah.
Yeah.
So
I like to
tell
take
us.
pride in what I do.
Yeah, that's what I say. That's what I say, and do it with the right people too. And if you're gonna do it with
Hmm.
friends, that's the best thing to do. So
Hmm.
because then we can pretty much just say, we're doing this project, but we're actually just taking a vacation. That's pretty much what we're
Yeah,
doing.
exactly.
So that's the best part of it.
We're
So.
enjoying ourselves while we work. Let's
Yeah,
be
why
honest.
not? Yeah, exactly. We always have to. So
Hmm.
yeah, well, especially to meet a lot of these guys too. It's just so cool too. Whether we do interviews with them or not, it's always nice to have connections and stuff, and just to be able to do the things that we got to do, and to be able to even to it's really cool just to be able to get the guests that we're going to have next week, and then there's a couple other guests we were trying to get on this week, and it was just crazy this week. And I don't know what it was. I don't know if it's because it's minus 5 degrees outside or what
Right.
it is, but I swear everything just fell apart today. But it's great just to be able to do the post fight show and just kind of see what we could do. But there's a lot of technology in this thing, so that's what's kind of cool about it. Where I think we'll be able to have people send comments in, and then also have people do. Uh, Collins and stuff. It looks like you're allowed to have like up to 6 people chime in and stuff. So I think I could
Oh,
be
that's
able
good.
to, yeah, I could be able to toggle in and out and stuff, and we could have guests on, and then the cool part is hopefully we'll be able to get the chat going because hopefully these guys that come in or end up doing the interviews with us, the fans will be able to get to ask questions because how many other podcasts get that? There's not many podcasts are like, oh hey, I have a question, but I'm gonna have to ask them for the next podcast or a week down the line. So we
Hmm.
want to we want to try to do it where you could do live questions, whether it's Neil or whoever comes in. It'll be definitely a cool thing to be able to ask your fighter whatever question you want, within reason. We
Hmm.
could.
Right.
That's a great thing with the toggle switch. You're being in mainstream. You were usually behind the glass, so you had to basically rely on a producer to cancel out a douchebag or something.
Right.
But now you can do it all on your own, so that's even
Right.
better. So yeah, so hopefully we'll be able to get more as far as the chat features, and we'll be able to get more people in. And supposedly there's even a call-in line here too. So
Oh, that's good.
yeah, so we'll do that. We'll try to see what we can do, and then hopefully eventually, we could be able to get some prizes and stuff given away and stuff. So it's always a cool thing. And once COVID maybe ends here pretty soon, we'll be able to possibly give away tickets and stuff like that. I know, fingers crossed. That's all
Yes.
we can do. So, and
It's
the funny
trending
thing,
down here, but we'll see what happens.
well, I know that the funny thing is, I still don't think they haven't announced anything for the venues for Bellator. I know for PFL they
It's
haven't
in
announced at all.
Mohegan Sun in Connecticut for
Okay.
Bellator.
Okay, that makes sense because they've always kind of rolled in Mohegan Sun, anyways.
Right. I still
And
don't think they're gonna have fans though. I don't think that.
well, and Grant Neal just recently fought in Bellator. I think that was at Mohegan Sun too, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think so.
I think so too. Yeah, because
So I think
well,
Mohegan's gonna be kind of like their apex
well, no,
for
for
the time
Bellator.
being.
Yeah. Well, didn't they have a problem? Was it them? I could have sworn that Mohegan had some issue with like their commission where they were like having some shady judges. Because I don't know if
Um,
you remember.
it
Remember
might
when
have been. I
what's
know
his
there
name?
was a little bit of an incident with one of the commission members not too long ago
Yeah,
with
yeah.
them.
Yeah, because remember Pat Militich, and I think Morrow was doing. Oh, I can't remember what company they were with.
Was
It,
that was an RFA, was it?
I don't think it was.
Or
I think it
LFA?
was. Yeah, I think it was before LFA. It was they were doing like some kickboxing or something, and it was a total. You could tell it was a total
Little
30
cluster?
27. Yeah, it was supposed to be 30-27 for wider, and they said like a split decision 29-28 for the other fighter. And Militich and Morrow, I guess, just started to walk off. They're like, "This is absolutely ridiculous. This is this is a joke of a commission." But I could have sworn it was at the Mohegan Sun, but maybe it was a different state.
Because I mean,
Because
yeah, if that was the case, it was a while ago. Because it seems like they've kind
yeah,
of cleaned it up a little bit.
yeah, because Mohegan Sun, it's in Connecticut, right?
Yeah, it's in
Yeah,
Connecticut.
yeah, that's what I'm thinking. I'm almost positive that's where it was, but I'll have to look into that because, yeah, that's pretty interesting because maybe they just got these guys out in anyways that were kind of corrupt, and you never know. Who says they weren't putting some money in the sports book or something? You have no idea. So
Right,
they could have
exactly.
been doing something shady. So
There's
yeah,
always a
so
possibility in this sport.
yeah, so and then the venues haven't been announced for
PFL.
PFL,
I
but
don't think so. I'm on their website now, and just yeah, they're saying venue to be determined, but they got some dates already.
yeah. What I'm thinking is I think they're going to roll at the MGM Grand because didn't they do that for late 2019 anyways for the
I
playoffs and
think that was
stuff?
Mandalay Bay. I think
You're
that was
right.
Mandalay
It
Bay.
was. Yeah, it was. It was Mandalay Bay. Yeah, so yeah, so then did they
Which
switch
they
it?
could
I'm
easily
starting to
do again.
wonder.
I'm sure.
I think they
I
switched
don't
it.
think so.
I could have sworn they started at MGM and then they switched to Mandalay. Maybe they were always at
They might
Mandalay.
have.
Yeah, I'll have to
They
look into
might
that.
have. I mean,
But
UFC stopped doing MGM several years ago, so they probably
yeah.
started doing stuff there.
Well, now I'm seeing just MGM is mostly boxing now, so or concerts. So because pretty much
Yeah,
T-Mobile's taking
and
over
and
everything. So
wrestling and
yeah, and
wrestling.
wrestling. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, AEW and stuff. Yeah.
Yep.
Um. So I'm just trying to think of. I'm guessing it has to be in Vegas. There's really no other places. Maybe Texas.
Maybe Florida. The other one would be Florida.
Yeah, I don't know if they're going to roll with that though, because they're mostly on the West Coast. But then they've done a lot of New York stuff back in the
Because if
day.
they do Vegas, they can easily do just empty arena.
Yeah, and that's what I'm wondering too, because I remember they used to do like the hall of the not the actual Madison Square Garden, but like the hall of it.
It was the theater.
Yeah, it's like the theater convention center type of deal. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess they could do it in. No, they're not even allowing New York. Yeah. So I heard that they're not even allowing Brooklyn Nets fans until like another 2 weeks or so.
Yeah,
So
and that's going to be limited capacity too.
oh yeah, and I even saw. I was surprised that I was watching Sports Center and they had the Coyotes game, and they even had some fans in that arena, and I was shocked because I thought
Right.
Arizona was pretty much locked down, but
Mm-hmm.
I just don't get it. It doesn't make any sense. There's some states where they still have outbreaks where they're like,
I mean,
oh, we'll allow it, and then
Florida's
like
no holds barred. Let's be honest.
yeah, I know. Well, that's another thing too. But then you got like Texas, where their cases are through the roof, and they're like, "Oh yeah, we can have everybody at Cowboy Stadium," and then
No,
and then Arizona,
no.
yeah, exactly, and then Colorado's like, "Oh, we barely have any cases, but we're going to shut everything down. We're going to make sure that nobody steps foot in the ball arena."
Well,
It's so weird. Yeah, I just don't get it. I just don't know what
yeah,
their reasoning behind all of it is. I don't know. I guess we'll let them deal
yeah.
with it,
Only we
but.
know.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
I, I
exactly.
I just can't wait for them to possibly let the people in for April's event, and it's getting closer and closer. So they might actually be able to let fans in coming here soon. It probably ain't going to be that many, but you know,
No, it won't be that many. But I mean, by April, I mean they can start doing limited capacity if that's the case.
well, not only that, it seemed like almost Dana kind of seems to hint that they could possibly do Fan Fest or something like that, similar in July. But I just don't know what they're going to pull off.
Well, I mean, all indicate, as we mentioned AEW earlier, they're saying maybe by Labor Day they can
Oh,
really start getting fans rolling
I
again
guess so. And
because
that's
they've
what
been
the third week of May, I think, usually Labor Day is.
they do a no they were planning on doing an event in Chicago Labor Day weekend. That's kind of like their tradition.
Oh, okay.
So they're thinking maybe by then, maybe they can really start thinking about doing fans, a lot of fans because they've been running limited capacity in Jacksonville for the past several months.
Okay. Yeah, that makes
So they're
sense.
thinking maybe by Labor Day they might start thinking about letting more and more people in if everything
Yeah.
goes as it's trending.
Well, and Dana pretty much said that he doesn't want to go anywhere else uh, other than selling out either
I mean
Vegas,
that's
Florida, or Texas. That's what it seems like. Yeah. So
mm-hmm.
they're almost like taking a page out of the WWE playbook where they're just trying to figure out places where they could definitely get monetary value. If they can't, then they're just going to stick with what they're already doing and just
All
stick to
right.
where they're at. So
Yeah, I mean WWE's got this is the WrestleMania is gonna be the first time with fans in a year.
yeah, yeah,
So that's
yeah.
gonna be interesting again.
Yeah, it'll be interesting, and then they'll do 2 nights of it too, so it'll be pretty
Smart.
crazy. And I still wonder how that's going to work, as they pretty much had it for last year. So does that mean they're going to honor some of the tickets and then only let certain people in, or I
Well,
don't
I mean
know
they're
how
only
that's
doing
going to work.
25,000 a day.
Yeah, so like if there ended up being
So
90,000 sold, what are they going to do? Are they just going to pick and choose or do a lottery? Yeah,
they
that's
kind
a
of because they
yeah
can't have one. They can't have someone get to do both nights.
yeah. So
You got to
that's what
choose
I'm
one or
like.
the other.
Yeah.
So I'm
So
assuming also they got announced like uh certain matches for one night, certain matches for the second night.
yeah. Yeah, so either way, I think they'll figure it out. But I would not be surprised if the PFL ends up doing all their cards in Vegas, no matter what. So it just kind of makes the most sense.
Hmm.
So, and then
Yeah,
like you said,
they've
yeah,
been letting UFC run for the past several months. They can probably let PFL do it.
yeah, that's what I'm thinking. And now that PFL is actually going to be shown on ESPN now, so that's pretty cool too.
Hmm.
Because it was kind of a pain when it was just the Fight Pass, but now it looks like they'll be able to be shown on a premiere network, so that's a good thing.
Hmm.
So, well, I think we'll hang it up, Ryan.
All right, sounds good, man.
Thanks for all your help over the years, and then we'll bring you in for a new segment in next week, and then we'll just try to see how we can run with it, and then we'll try to just spread the word more and get people on. So we got to figure
Sounds
out
good, man.
ways how to put it out there and get more attention to it too. So we'll figure it
Perfect.
out. Yeah. Thanks, bro. Have a great night.
Same to you, man. Thank you.
Later. There we go. See, that's a pretty good transition, I must say. It works out pretty well. So it looks like we'll put all the information on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook page, all this stuff as far as what our guests are going to be for next week, and also what our be able to stream and stuff on it too. So we'll just be able to figure it out. But in the meantime, we'll give you all the updates and stuff, and hopefully you guys will be able to tune in next weekend to be able to do the pre and the post show for the Curtis Blades and Derek Lewis main event. So we'll be signing off now, and then thank you guys very much for watching, and we'll see you soon.